And let me talk about the hardest issue here in Michigan is the Middle East. I understand why young Palestinian and Arab Americans in Michigan think too many people have died.
Yeah, because they want the streets safe for not just them,
Yes.
the children, and not just that, the children who are jacking and robbing everyone. Just every time she talks, you kind of get why Bill did what he.
Bill Clinton likely believed his toughest fights were long behind him. Years after leaving the White House, his legacy seemed secure. His speaking schedule stayed busy, his foundation was well known, and most of his story had been tucked away in history books and nostalgic TV specials. Then Tyrus entered the discussion like a storm in cowboy boots and made it clear that the past was nowhere near as settled as many people wanted to believe.
2 days ago, I turned 78, the oldest man in my family of 4 generations. And the only personal vanity I want to assert is I'm still younger than Donald Trump.
Before we go any further, hit that like button and subscribe because you will not want to miss what comes next. Here is the reality about political icons. As time passes, they start to feel larger than life. The rough moments slowly fade away. The controversies get pushed into the background. The scandals become documentaries filled with soft narration and dramatic music. Before long, the story feels comfortable, familiar, and almost easy to accept.
He treats them like the law of the jungle. He lets them know that he's the lion and they're all sheep. And they can get mauled at any time, as we saw.
Yeah.
There is nothing worse than to be called forward on the world stage, to be whispered to, and then he didn't even say go back. He said, he turned and he was like, the only thing would have been better if he would have said, are you still here?
Yeah.
And Tyrus has never been the type to play it safe. What began as a simple comment quickly grew into something much larger. It was not a polite disagreement or a carefully worded criticism. It became a direct challenge to the idea that some political figures should never be questioned, that enough years have gone by, that people have already moved on, and that the debate is somehow finished.
You know, it's kind of like, again, I don't condone, cheating, but that's your morning.
Yeah.
You gotta kiss that before you go to bed at night, and then you gotta sleep with one eye open.
Yeah.
Because your buddy Epstein didn't off himself, and she has all this extra footage cut up in the closet. Like, I bet Bill has not had a good night's sleep for.
Tyrus looked at Bill Clinton's long and complicated legacy and essentially said, "Not so fast." Before anyone jumps to conclusions, this is not about digging up old headlines just for attention. It is about something much deeper. It is about accountability, about how society remembers its leaders, about who is celebrated as a respected statesman and who serves as a warning for future generations, and whether those two roles overlap more often than many people are willing to admit.
These documents show Jeffrey Epstein ended his friendship with Bill Clinton because he thought the former president was a liar, especially the time he said, "My wife will never murder you." Oh, here we go.
For years, Bill Clinton has been seen by many as the charismatic uncle of American politics. The saxophone appearances on late-night television, the southern charm, the effortless smile, the kind of person who could win over a room and soften criticism before the meal was even finished. But personality is not the same thing as leadership. And looking back fondly at the past does not mean forgetting what actually happened.
I tell you right now, they're going to finish ahead of time.
Of course they are, because he's paying with his own money. The taxpayer, build whatever you want. The only thing I would ask is if maybe conjunction to the Rose Garden, we get some barbecue pits there, that'd be nice. I would be there in a second.
And I'm
he won the popular vote, and so he can do what he wants to do. And the best part is, it's not taxpayer money.
Right. I think, Aaron, one of the things for me is I believe in the ounce of prevention type of communications, right? So just like a little bit of heads up, like, by the way, guys, you're going to see something that might, just so you know, this is the plan, this is what we're doing.
Tyrus, known for speaking his mind, did not treat Clinton like an untouchable political figure. Instead, he raised tough questions that challenged years of carefully built public image. In doing so, he sparked a larger debate about legacy, accountability, and whether time causes people to overlook past controversies. Rather than focusing on nostalgia, Tyrus pushed the conversation toward double standards and why some public figures regain respect, while others remain defined by scandal.
That's why he aged so badly. You know, like, a lot of people don't know this. Bill Clinton is only 37 years old. A lot of people don't know that. But she's just evil. Like, there's nothing like her.
Why would she even tweet that? Like, don't you have
I think she just sits around
That's the
in
whole
her
point.
evil lair. Whenever she runs out of Eye of Newt and Small Children to Boil, she then goes to X and just says whatever the most evil.
And this is where things get more interesting. Because the call-out wasn't only about Clinton's past actions, but also about how power and politics deal with consequences, how influence slowly reshapes public perception, and how quickly some people are forgiven. When Tyrus made his point, he did it with no softness and no careful wording. Just a direct claim that some parts of history shouldn't be brushed aside just because the person involved can play a saxophone or deliver a polished speech. It was disruptive, and that was the intention. Clinton supporters pushed back, pointing to context and the idea that power protects public figures in ways ordinary people never experience. That is why the discussion reached beyond politics. It forced bigger questions. Should time soften judgment? Does performance in office outweigh moral concerns? Does charm reduce accountability, or are these just stories shaped by those who benefit from them?
The Epstein, with Kat, I think the victims should have their day, but it's utter. The amounts of levels of made up to take him down. If they had a real Epstein file, you think they would have been like, no, if we expose it, we'll lose Bill Clinton. They wouldn't have gave a about Bill. They would have burned down everyone to kill the Orange Dragon.
Yeah.
So we know it's nothing about him. What it's about is the people who write the checks for them. That's why they're so, it's Trump. They want Trump. That's why they lie.
And suddenly, what seemed like a simple media moment became a deeper debate about memory and power. Clinton has long been skilled at political survival, from impeachment battles to global appearances, moving through controversy with remarkable resilience. Critics fade, news cycles shift, and invitations keep coming. But the internet era is not the 1990s. Nothing fully disappears anymore. Every clip, headline, and transcript stays searchable and archived. So when someone like Tyrus brings an old chapter back into focus, it doesn't take much to restart public debate. What made this moment more intense was the tone, sharp, direct, and unfiltered. It forced reactions, created sides, and left little room for neutrality. Some saw Tyrus as fearless, others as provocative, or just reopening old wounds for attention. The truth likely sits somewhere in the middle. But the larger point remains: political legacies are not fixed. They are constantly reshaped by time, perspective, and new generations, and what was once accepted can later be judged very differently.
I believe the word you're looking for, Greg, is root causes.
Yes, root causes.
That's one of their favorite words, root causes. Lo and behold, Greg, in his little wisdom, discovered what the root cause was of all the violence and going on.
Yes.
You opened the border.
Yeah.
Which caused other countries to dump their best and brightest.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do. Like, I got my 6 kids.
And Tyrus stepped directly into that ongoing debate. He challenged the idea that time automatically brings moral closure and questioned whether economic success can erase ethical concerns. Instead of leaning on nostalgia, he pushed the conversation toward scrutiny, exposing something uncomfortable about how societies deal with leadership. People tend to prefer clean redemption stories and neat endings, where messy history can be packed away and forgotten. But history rarely works that way. Clinton's presidency is still widely debated, feeding into larger discussions about power, accountability, media framing, and public memory. It raises questions about whether standards are applied fairly or selectively. In the end, it was never only about Bill Clinton. It was about how political forgiveness works and whether time truly resolves controversy or simply pushes it further into the background.
There are 500,000 open jobs in manufacturing today in the United States. I don't think we need fewer immigrants. I think we need more. Should they obey the rule of law? Yes. If they bring drugs into the country, should we escort them away? Yes. If they hurt people? Yes. But the truth is that immigrants are much more likely to...
Whether people agree with his tone or not, the point behind it still matters. In a time when trust in institutions is low and double standards are heavily debated, these moments hit differently than before. They feel less like isolated incidents and more like built-up pressure breaking through. The bigger question is not whether Clinton responds, but whether public opinion shifts. Will other political figures be re-examined with the same intensity? Does nostalgia for 1990s politics give way to a more critical view? Tyrus didn't just challenge Clinton, he challenged the comfort people have with political stories being finished. And in today's media environment, once that door opens, it's hard to close again. So the real question is simple. Is this just a passing moment, or the start of a wider rethinking of political memory?
If the devil himself showed up, like, you'll never hear her being possessed by a demon. You know what I'm saying? The demon will walk in and the demon will be calling Dr. Phil, you don't believe the that I just saw, bro. Like,
Yeah, the demon will need the exorcism.
She is right that the kids on the subway aren't scared, though, but that's because they're in gangs.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, per Katie's point earlier, though, she is essentially, if you follow her logic, violent crime, good, leave it alone.
Yeah, that's great.
And this may be the most important point, because once people accept that no legacy is untouchable, the whole political picture changes. The line between heroes and villains starts to blur, and even long-settled reputations feel less permanent. Tyrus wasn't just focused on Bill Clinton as a person, but on the protective layer that builds around former presidents over time. Speaking tours, public appearances, and philanthropy often smooth out controversy and soften public memory. The question becomes, what happens when someone pushes back against that softening? The debate then expands beyond Clinton to a larger issue. Do former leaders automatically become more respected with time? Tyrus argued that if accountability matters, it should not expire, and if standards are real, they must apply across time.
Honestly, Bill Clinton, that's as shocking as Mike Pence at church. So we saw that coming. For me, it feels like the UFO stories, right? They're always, like, for a couple of years now, it's been like a series of tantalizing hints at something else. Perhaps to keep us occupied with the morsels rather than the meat. And what's the meat? As Jesse might be alluding to, a larger, bigger operation that had its tentacles everywhere, and it's run by intel agencies to hold on to power and to wield.
It forces people to choose a side. Either political history is faced honestly, or it becomes a selective scrapbook of wins with scandals conveniently softened. There is little middle ground when the tone is this direct. Media reactions only added fuel. Some framed it as another culture war moment, while others focused on questions of elite protection and accountability. Social media quickly split, with one side calling it pointless provocation and the other arguing that old issues don't stop mattering just because time has passed. That tension is why it stuck. Today, control over narratives is fragmented, and any voice with reach can revive old stories instantly. Tyrus understood that reality. His criticism landed in an environment built for viral conflict, skeptical of polished political images, which made the response even more intense.
and when the border opened up, I took the 4 smart ones and like, you get the out. I'm gonna stay here with the 2 special ones. Like, so, but here's the thing, don't feel bad, Greg, because Ed don't believe it either.
Yes.
You know how I know? You know how I know? Because he couldn't talk about it. This is a man who gets paid to speak and play a character, lie. And he said, what happened.
And this is where the story becomes sharper. It is no longer only about Bill Clinton, but about whether political elites are judged on a different timeline than ordinary people. When powerful figures survive scandals and return to public life largely intact, it creates the impression that influence can soften consequences and that reputations can be rebuilt over time. Tyrus challenges that idea directly, arguing that success in office or diplomacy should not erase earlier controversies. Critics, however, say achievements should still be recognized without ignoring past issues. That back and forth is what defines the discussion now. Once a political legacy becomes contested again, it stops being fixed history and turns into an ongoing debate across media, classrooms, and online platforms.
right? I mean, there's so many crazy things happening in this world that's unexplained. You could point to our immigration policy, which is a mess. Everybody agrees it's a mess. No one's doing anything about it. Perhaps a lot of these insane actions are because people are forced to do things because someone has something on them. Maybe it's not, the filter isn't oppressed versus oppressor, but it's the compromiser versus.
The late 1990s are no longer just old footage. They are being reinterpreted through today's standards. A generational shift plays a big role in this, as younger audiences, less tied to nostalgia, are more willing to question that era without sentiment. They see it as history on record, not lived experience, and that distance changes how it is judged. When figures like Tyrus raise criticism in a direct modern tone, it speeds up that reevaluation and turns settled history into open debate. There is also a clear media dynamic at work. Calling out a former president guarantees attention and cuts through the noise. But the deeper tension remains unresolved, touching on power, privilege, and media framing that still matter today. The impact goes beyond one figure, challenging nostalgia and political myth. In the digital age, the past is never truly gone. It is archived, searchable, and one viral moment away from returning to the present.